You have almost certainly heard the story of how the Enigma was cracked. You may have seen the film. You know the name Alan Turing. You know about the hut at Bletchley Park and the machine called the Bomba and the intelligence product that shortened the war possibly by 2 years. All of that is real. What the film did not tell you is that when Alan Turing and his colleagues began their work at Bletchley Park in 1939, they were not starting from zero. They were starting from a foundation that had been handed to them, at a secret meeting in a forest in Poland 6 weeks before the German invasion, by 3 men the film does not name. This is the story the history books buried for 40 years because the people who knew it were either dead, living behind the Iron Curtain, or bound by the Official Secrets Act. The Enigma machine was an electromechanical cipher device. A typist pressed a key. The electrical signal passed through a series of rotor wheels, each one substituting one letter for another. The resulting letter lit up on a display board. The genius of the system was that the substitution changed with every single keystroke, so the same letter typed twice in a row would produce 2 completely different cipher characters. The rotor settings were changed daily, according to a codebook. The number of possible settings was, by 1930s calculation, somewhere in the range of 10 to the 23rd power. The Germans were confident. This was not arrogance, it was mathematics. Their cryptographers had checked the numbers. The cipher was sound. What they had not fully accounted for was that mathematics could cut in both directions. Marian Rejewski was born in 1905 in Bydgoszcz, in the part of Poland that had been under German partition until 1918. He had grown up in German-administered territory. He was fluent in German, trained in mathematics at Poznan and Göttingen, and he had been recruited by the Polish Cipher Bureau while still a graduate student. His 2 colleagues were Jerzy Różycki, who was 21 when they began their work, and Henryk Zygalski, who was 24. All 3 were mathematicians. None of them were professional cryptographers before this assignment. The Polish Cipher Bureau had decided deliberately to try a different approach, not experienced codebreakers trained on classical ciphers, but pure mathematicians who would attack the problem as what it was: an equation. Rejewski's starting point was the daily message keys. German operators, following procedure, transmitted certain identifying information at the beginning of each encrypted message. The procedure had a small but consistent structural flaw. The message key was transmitted twice, a redundancy designed to catch errors. Rejewski recognized that this repetition created a mathematical relationship that was, in theory, solvable. He spent the better part of a year on the mathematics alone. In late 1932, using a combination of theoretical analysis and a batch of actual German military messages obtained by French intelligence through a human source inside the German cipher office, Rejewski reconstructed the internal wiring of the Enigma machine. He had not touched an Enigma. He had reasoned it out from first principles. Within weeks of breaking the wiring, Rejewski had read his first actual German military messages. Within months, the Polish Cipher Bureau was reading German Enigma traffic with a regularity that shocked their own senior officers. This was 1933. Hitler had just taken power. The Polish military, sandwiched between Germany and the Soviet Union, understood exactly what the access to German communications represented. Rejewski designed a machine he called the Bomba, not a bomb but a reference to a Polish ice cream dessert, named in a moment that tells you something about the 3 young men who built it. The Bomba used 6 interconnected Enigma replica machines to cycle through possible daily settings and identify which one matched the intercepted traffic. Could break a daily Enigma key in roughly 15 minutes. By 1938, the Polish were routinely reading German military communications. In December 1938, Germany changed the Enigma procedure in ways that multiplied the number of possible settings by a factor of 60. The Bomba could no longer keep pace. The Polish Cipher Bureau needed more resources than it had. More machines, more personnel, more time. And time was running out. In the summer of 1939, with Germany clearly preparing to invade Poland, Polish intelligence made a decision that was strategically extraordinary and personally costly. They gave everything away. On July 24th and 25th, 1939, French and British intelligence officers met with the Polish Cipher Bureau at a facility in the Pyry Forest, outside Warsaw. The Polish cryptographers presented their work. They demonstrated the Bomba. They gave each delegation a fully functional replica of the Enigma machine, along with the documentation of Rejewski's mathematical techniques, and the method for breaking the daily keys. They asked for nothing in return. France fell in June 1940. Britain did not. At Bletchley Park, the team that included Alan Turing built on Rejewski's work. Turing's own bomb, far more powerful than the Polish original, used the theoretical framework that Rejewski had established. It was not a reinvention. It was an extension. Turing himself said in a post-war document that without the work of the Poles, the British effort would have been set back by years. By how many years, no one can say for certain. But the historical consensus is that if Britain had been forced to start from scratch in 1939, the intelligence product known as Ultra, the decoded German communications that shaped Allied strategy throughout the war, might not have been available in time to matter. Marian Rejewski survived the war. He escaped to Romania after Poland fell, made his way to France, and eventually to Britain, where he spent the war years at a Polish signals intelligence unit in Boxmoor. Here is the detail that takes a moment to absorb. The British government, which owed its Enigma capability in part to his work, did not tell him it was being used. For operational security reasons, the existence of Ultra was kept classified from virtually everyone, including the Poles who had made it possible. Rejewski spent the war breaking German police ciphers, less sensitive material, without being told that his mathematical breakthrough was, at that same moment, helping to win the Battle of the Atlantic. He returned to Poland after the war and found a country that was now a Soviet satellite. The communist government did not welcome former Western intelligence officers. He was banned from working in cryptography or any national security field. He got a job as a bookkeeper at a cable factory in Bydgoszcz. He worked as a bookkeeper for 15 years. He raised his children. He did not speak publicly about what he had done. His colleague Jerzy Różycki had drowned in 1942 when a ship he was traveling on sank in the Mediterranean. He was 31 years old. Henryk Zygalski remained in Britain after the war and taught mathematics at the University of Surrey until his death in 1978. In 1973, the British government finally declassified the existence of the Enigma operation. F.H. Hinsley and his colleagues began work on the official history of British wartime intelligence. Historians began to reconstruct the actual sequence of events. Rejewski, then in his late 60s, was found. He was invited to write his account. In 1980, he published an article in the Annals of the History of Computing titled, "How Polish Mathematicians Deciphered the Enigma." It is precise, modest, and almost entirely free of bitterness, which, given what he was describing, is remarkable. He died in Warsaw on February 13, 1980. He was 74 years old. Alan Turing died in 1954 and became one of the most celebrated figures in the history of science and computing. Marian Rejewski became, for most of the second half of the 20th century, a footnote. In recent years, the historical record has shifted. Poland has named streets, squares, and a university building after the three mathematicians. The Bletchley Park Museum now includes substantial material about the Polish contribution. Dermot Turing, Alan Turing's nephew, wrote a book specifically to document what the Poles did and how much the British owed them. There is a statue of Rejewski in Bydgoszcz, in the city where he was born and where he spent the years of his professional exile as a bookkeeper. He broke Enigma before anyone else in the world. He handed the solution to Britain for free when it mattered most. He came home to a country that had no use for him. He kept the books at a cable factory. He was the man who cracked the unbreakable code. Most people still don't know his name. If the story moved you, subscribe to follow the Untold front. New stories every week.